Welcome to Candid Conversations. Today we're talking about cancer. Odds are you or somebody you know and love had, has, or will have this deadly disease. Our guests today are going to teach us that there is support out there and we can beat it together. But first, let's get the conversation started with the usual gang. Becky Lantry and Gary Brienda.
Hi.
How you doing, ladies?
Wonderful, thank you.
It's a tough topic today. You know, people call it the big C. Some people call it the C word. I say cancer sucks. Let's just be honest.
It just sucks.
It just sucks.
It just sucks. There's no way around it.
There is no way around it, but everybody is affected by it. And I know you've been affected by it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, the closest person to me, my grandmother, she raised me pretty much. And watching her go through it 3 rounds, I mean, blood, bone, and breast. And just seeing the level of resilience she had to have and the amount of support she needed around her, you know. And she was such a warrior, and to have to see her shrink from that warrior status to almost like a victim, you know, it was heartbreaking.
Wow. It's a devastating thing, and you both know that my mother has been battling lymphoma for about 3 years, and we just found out that it's spread. And she just finished having radiation, but next week she has to go back in and start chemo again. And it's heartbreaking. It's devastating, and it's hard for the patient, but I'm the caregiver, and it's just as hard for me.
Exactly.
It it's easy for me to say it's harder because I'm not going through it, but I'm going through those stages. I'm angry, I'm scared, I'm frustrated, and I just feel helpless. It's my mother. I want to do everything for her. I want to take away her pain, and I can't.
Yeah, and you would think like how death comes. People go, well, I just want death to be short, fast, quick, you know? But you can't choose that. And the toughest part is to watch somebody go through all the phases with a disease like that. That's very challenging.
I lost my best friend. She was like my mother here in California, and she started off, she had chemo. She was getting ready for chemo. She had radiation first, and it really wasn't the cancer that killed her. She went in the hospital and she got the superbug.
Wow. See? But the immunity was so low from all of the radiation and the chemo that she just couldn't fight it.
Right. But she didn't die of cancer, and nobody has to die of cancer anymore.
That's exactly right.
Every day we hear of new drugs,
yes,
new medications, new different therapies that are available. So as long as we have the right attitude and the right desire, we can beat it. But even more importantly, if we have the right support system.
Yeah, and the preventative measures too. You know, we know that, Dina, like just basic nutrition and just our attitudes, you know, just generally to think that no one's, you know, invisible from this plague, so to speak, you know? And what do they say, 1 out of 5 or 2 out of 5? You know, it's very common.
It's growing, it's growing. But as long as everyone stands behind the person who's dealing with cancer and we support them, we're gonna beat it. And I'm glad that we're talking about this, because today our guests are going to talk just about that, and we'll be right back with our first guest.
Riding a bicycle can seem like child's play.
But only if you're playing indoors.
Riding in the real street has real consequences.
Play it safe. Ride by the rules. Cars and bikes need to play together.
We are now joined with our first guest, Julia Forth, the Executive Director of the Cancer Support Group. Please, sorry, it's community. Sorry, Ken. Our first guest is Julia Forth, the Executive Director of the Cancer Support Community Benjamin Center. Julia, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
We're really thrilled that you're here. And tell us a little bit about the cancer support community?
Yes, we're a nonprofit here in West Los Angeles, although we're a national and international organization. We provide free services to anybody affected by cancer, so that's patients and family members. And the program is called psychosocial support in the business, and that means group support, individual counseling, healthy lifestyle classes like yoga and Tai Chi and Pilates and meditation. And we also have an educational program where we bring doctors and complementary practitioners in to speak on different medical topics, and also social support.
Wow. And all that's free.
All of it is free of charge.
Wonderful.
We have a lot going on, yeah.
So are the sessions very big?
It depends. We have probably about 20 to 25 group support per week. We have just as many mind-body classes, so it depends. A lot of our groups are drop-in. We have 3 different breast cancer groups, for instance. So it depends. It can be anywhere from 10 people to 20.
Okay.
And that's also with the yoga classes as well, and all of the Pilates and the Tai Chi. We make it very easy to use our program, so a lot of times you can just stop on in whenever you want to take a class.
Wow. And
Yeah.
the program itself, I mean, it's designed a certain way to address the mind, body, spirit aspect. Can you
It
speak
is.
a little more about that?
Yes, it absolutely is. We were founded in 1982 by Dr. Harold Benjamin and his wife Harriet Benjamin. And she had breast cancer in the early 70s, and it was a time when nobody really talked about cancer. It was the big C. People thought it was contagious. So they developed this program where people could come together and, you know, everyone knows it's not just about the body. It's the mind, it's the spirit, it's the heart. And at that time, they thought they were crazy. Why would you want to get together with people and talk about your cancer? Why would you want to do yoga? Why would you want to do relaxation visualization? But now, of course, we know that we're not just the body.
That's right.
So it's people come to us and they're very frightened, of course, and they walk in and they see this beautiful place with people who are coming together to support each other, and you can just see, the life come back into them, and that's very, very important to us and very rewarding.
Do you help each person who comes on an individual basis based on their specific cancer?
Yes, we do have groups that are cancer specific. We also have groups that are all different types of diagnoses, and we do have a short-term individual counseling. Not everybody's a group person, and so we do up to 6 sessions, and if people are a little tentative about joining a group, they can do the 6 individual and then fold into the larger groups. Usually once they come to us, they see that we're a nice, friendly place, and all those fears go away.
And do they usually bring the family with them?
Yes, I'm glad you asked me that, because the families are very, very important to us. I myself was a caregiver for my father, who was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer probably about 15 years ago. And for anybody who has ever been a caregiver of somebody with cancer, it's scary, you're angry, you're upset, you're sometimes you isolate yourself, you're trying to figure everything else, and you want to be there for that person in every way, and you feel helpless. And so, because of what the Benjamins went through together, they knew that it was just as important for the caregivers and for family members to be supported as well.
And speaking of helpless, I mean, one of the most natural is the children. I mean, how they're affected. Are there specific measures you have for kids and young adults?
Yes, we have a young adults group specifically for young adults. We are also developing our children's program right now. We have a family drum circle where adults and kids can come together, and there's a licensed social worker who leads that group, and they drum and they have fun together. So we are now developing that program, yes.
That's wonderful.
Yeah.
And activities that go along with that? Like, do you do memoir books? Do you do any writing or journaling for the kids?
Yes, we do. And for the adults, we have a writing group. Actually, we have 2 writing groups right now. So that's a really popular expressive writing that helps a lot. The mind-body connection is, I know that's kind of something that's been out and about. Everybody has heard about it, but we were really at the forefront of that in the medical community. It was really such a new thing. And it's still, not everybody's on board with it, but I think everybody is starting to see that it's much better to be not so stressed when you're going through something that's so stressful.
Right.
So it helps everything.
As a pioneer then in the mind-body connection, what have you found is inspiring for you in terms of being able to translate this out to the public?
Well, our members they inspire me every day. People who just come in and they are you know, they want to be part of their treatment. You know, they don't want to just sit back and be passive and let things happen to them. They want to partner with their physicians, and they want to help themselves in whatever way they can. They want to go to Pilates. They want to make their bodies as strong as they can. They want to learn how to meditate.
It's amazing.
Yeah,
it's like very hands-on.
It's really, really hands-on, and that's really inspiring to me.
So Julia, can you tell me how old the youngest person was that came into your community that actually was sat in your group?
Well, we don't have group support for little kids.
Okay.
But we can have, you know, 3-4-year-olds come into the drum circle.
Okay.
Right, because that's a whole different, you know, way of psychosocial support is a little bit different for little kids.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
so usually the people that are in that community, I'm going to say, are probably 18 and over.
18 and up, yes, most of them. But as I said, we are developing our kids program, so we will have activities for them in the future, definitely, yeah.
Caregivers can come in by themselves for emotional support?
Definitely. We have caregiver groups and groups for the patients, because the caregivers, of course, have very different issues that they need to talk about
That's right.
sometimes on their own.
Like what?
Well, you know, if they're angry at the person who has cancer and they feel guilty about being angry
Yes.
That's
at
right.
the person who has cancer.
Damn you for having cancer!
Yeah, right,
Damn it!
right.
Dichotomy,
It's-
right?
It's, yeah, it's constantly, and they want to be able to talk about that with other caregivers who understand what they're going through, so they can know, you know, normalize it and know it's not unusual to feel angry at what you're going through, and that's very important that they have a safe place to express that to each
Yes.
other.
Yes.
Yeah.
For
Now,
sure.
are there a lot of rare cancers that you actually?
Yes, we do have. Yes, any type of cancer is fine. Whatever you need at our community is fine. We do have, as I said, 3 different breast cancer groups, because breast cancer is so prevalent. And then we have a brain tumor group. We have a pancreatic cancer group, and then, as I said, general groups with mixed diagnoses.
Right, right.
So if there's a need, some of our members will come to us and say, you know, I really would like you all to consider this type of group. And of course we will if we have enough people. So the program is ever changing in that way.
And speaking of like breast cancer, I mean, you know, the self-esteem issues this causes, the psychological damages it can cause on a woman. How do you work with women in this regard, and then their spouses or their partners?
Right. Well, I'm not a clinician. All of our groups are run by licensed psychotherapists, by the way.
Okay.
So I have heard that they deal with a lot of that. You know, body image, sexuality, of course.
Of course.
Everything about being human. You know, this is just, cancer affects every part of a person,
That's right.
psychologically, of the heart and of the spirit. There's nothing that's untouched. And it doesn't come at a time that is convenient. You know,
No,
you
no.
know,
It's never
so,
convenient.
right?
It's
So
never convenient.
and these things are never convenient. So people are going through all kinds of things, you know, life issues. You know, we have people come to us and say, you know, you kept our family together.
Oh,
Because, you know, my wife was diagnosed with cancer, and we weren't doing too well, and we have 2 little kids, and we were thinking of separating, but here she has cancer, and you held us together.
That's right.
We hear that a lot.
That's
Yeah.
You offer all these services for free. How? How do you raise money?
Well, we have special events,
Yes.
grants, foundations,
Okay.
individual donors. So those are the 3 major ways that we do get funds.
And are you partnered with anyone else?
No, we're a 501c3. So there's about 40 communities around the country, but we're all responsible for our own fundraising. We don't have any government support.
Right.
It's really all, you know, from the kindness of people's hearts donating to us, and the foundations and the grants. And of course, with the economic environments in 2008, 2009, it has been quite a challenge.
Oh, it's
But
very
we're there, we're hanging in there.
Well, that's
yeah.
fantastic, and I know that we all wish you the best of luck, because you are doing
Absolutely.
such amazing work for everybody.
Thank you.
Juliet, thank you so much for joining us. We
Thank you.
really appreciate
Thank you
it.
so much.
Thank you
We
for
really had a
your
good
time.
time.
Thank you.
you very much.
We will be right back with our next guest. Don't go away.
Discover 30 years of opera in Santa Monica. Discover the Verdi Chorus.
We are now joined by Rhonda Smith, the CEO of Breast Cancer Partners. Rhonda, thank you so much for joining us today.
Well, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here today.
Hi, Rhonda.
Hi there. How are you?
Hi, Rhonda.
Good, thank you.
It's great.
Tell us a little bit about Breast Cancer Partners.
Well, Breast Cancer Partner is all about helping women understand how to recover from treatment, restore their lives back to normal, and then get re-energized and living their lives well beyond breast cancer. And we take a more integrative and holistic approach to helping women do that. So while we focus on life after treatment ends, but we help women no matter where they are in their journey, from the time of diagnosis all the way through the rest of their lives.
That's extraordinary, because I would think, you know, we were just talking earlier with the guests that the impact that it has on the emotions and the psyche, you know, even after you survive. I mean, you speak a little bit about that?
Sure, and as Julia talked about, it really is about taking care of the whole person.
Right.
So not just about treating the disease. And so when women are in the recovery mode, it's not, I mean, there are a lot of things that happen as a result of cancer treatment. Of course, there are side effects that what women have to deal with while they're going through treatment, but there's also residual effects or after effects of treatment. And so while they may be done with that phase of their journey, there's a constant reminder that they are a cancer survivor. So things like lymphedema can occur, which is the swelling of the limb, especially the affected arm that was where they had surgery. There is neuropathy that could take place. There's chemo brain that actually happens as a result of chemotherapy, and that could persist for 6 months or longer depending on the individual. So there are lots of repercussions, so to speak, that happen as a result of cancer treatment.
So when you say get back to normal, is there ever a real back to normal?
We call it the new normal because you're absolutely right. You're not exactly the same person that you were before your diagnosis. I went through that process myself and thought that the day I finished my last radiation treatment that I could pick up my life where I left off the day before my diagnosis. And I realized I was not physically the same person, mentally the same person, emotionally, even spiritually the same person. And so it took me a while to really get my bearings and kind of accept the new me. But the new me is not so bad, so it's okay.
How did you learn to accept the new you?
Well, I had to just be comfortable with setting boundaries and knowing what my capacity to do, and especially to live my life in the way that's healthy for me. You know, before I worked 10, 12-hour days, and I was busy 7 days a week, just going nonstop, thinking, you know, I'm invincible, I'm superwoman, nothing would ever happen to me. But, you know, my breast cancer was a wake-up call, and so it really helped me reset my priorities and make my health and wellness my #1 priority, because if I'm not complete and whole and healthy, I can't do all the other things that I need to do. And I think the important lesson was to respect the boundaries that I set for myself, and also, you know, what I'm able to do and how much I'm able to give of myself every day. And I know that I have to stick to that, or else I really end up in a bad place, and I don't want to do that again.
So you had to make quite a bit of change. You had to change your eating habits.
Change my eating habits. I've always been physically active, but I was more deliberate about my exercise, and yoga actually was a big part of my healing and recovery process, because it was really the only physical activity I could do while I was going through treatment, but I gained so much more from my yoga practice. I practice Ashtanga, and when Julia was talking about the whole mind-body-spirit connection, I mean, I gained that through my yoga practice, and it really helped me deal with the stress of my life at the time, and after that, it helped to, I think, you know, yoga by its own nature helps to improve the immune system, the lymphatic flow, which is an important part of the healing process for breast cancer survivors, and also just to, you know, release all the stress that we hold on to. And, you know, I think subconsciously there's a lot of trauma that happens to us, especially women who've had mastectomies, and so it's important to release that, and there are certain yoga poses that can help facilitate that process. So yoga has a lot of benefits on its own, but especially for women diagnosed with breast cancer.
You know, Rhonda, coming from a background where my grandma practiced yoga, my mom practiced yoga, I'm biased to it. You know, that has that integration process to it. What do you suggest to women that are kind of on the go, you know, maybe haven't been affected by cancer yet, and are striving and pushing and achieving and professionally and personally, what suggestions do you have for them in terms of preventative measures?
Well, the same thing that I talk to women diagnosed with breast cancer about. It's important to make sure that you put your health and wellness first and make that your #1 priority. And even if you just take 5 minutes out of your day to meditate, to have quiet time, have your own time out, so to speak, before you have to engage in any other activity after working all day. You know, we all love our families, but sometimes we just kind of need our own little space and time. So making sure that there's, you know, some time that you carve out of your day to take care of you, to nurture your spirit, your health and wellness in whatever way that works for you. You know, for some people it is meditation, for some people it's yoga, for some people it's running. So find what works for you and make that your priority, or at least take the time to, you know, do something that makes you feel good and healthy.
That's wonderful. And that saying no is not a bad thing sometimes, right?
Saying no is a great thing. And and not feeling guilty about it.
And not
even
feeling
better.
guilty.
Exactly.
Yes, very important.
Yes.
Wow.
Yeah.
If a client comes to you, what's the first thing that you do to figure out what they need personally?
Well, I guess it all depends on where they are in their journey. But say it's a woman who's newly diagnosed. I think the most important thing for a woman to recognize is that, you know, we talk about survivorship, and, you know, a woman who's diagnosed with cancer is deemed a survivor the day of her diagnosis. So I believe that survivorship starts at the moment of diagnosis. And so what that means is that it's important for an individual to really understand how to optimize their health and wellness while they're going through the entire process. And so it's also important to get as much information and understand as much as you can about your diagnosis and your prognosis as well. Because it's important to know what you're up against, so you know what game plan you need to put together and what you're really dealing with. And so being at the center of the decision making and being proactive and kind of being your own health and wellness advocate is very important. So being empowered when it comes to really managing and taking control of your disease is an important thing.
As a form of self-care.
As a form of self-care and self-efficacy.
That's
exactly right.
So have we come a long way since the beginning of, for instance, radiation treatments and chemo treatments? Because before it seemed like, when I first heard about it, my sister and my aunt, my sister had asbestos cancer.
Oh, wow.
And in the treatment, her skin came off. So
Yes,
that's what I'm saying. Have they
well,
come a long way and changed a lot?
Well, yes, there has been
Dosage-wise?
progress made in terms of chemotherapy treatment, and, you know, with other types of cancer treatment also. I have heard many stories from women who unfortunately had issues with radiation, and their skin has come off. They've lost a nipple, you know. So I don't know if that's a function of how the treatment has been set up in terms of the operator who's actually operating the machine. But I really shudder to think that, you know, a really responsible professional would not see that someone is severely burned from radiation treatment and then do something about it. But unfortunately, I've seen situations where it's been really, women have been really severely burned. I don't understand, honestly, how that happens. But in terms of chemotherapy treatment, yes, there has been significant progress made compared to 10, 15, 20 years ago. And so it may not be as severe as it used to be. And for what we've learned also is that there's different types of cancer. So breast cancer is many types, and there are many subtypes, and so there has been treatment for many subtypes of breast cancer as well. So not just one size fits all per se.
I think that what you're doing is fantastic by telling us to be our own advocates and not just rely on what our doctors suggest.
Exactly.
And what you're doing is fantastic, and we are so amazingly happy that you joined us today, because everything you gave us was fantastic information. So Rhonda,
Yes.
thank you so much
Rhonda.
for joining
Thank
us.
you so much. It was
Thank you.
great
Appreciate
to be
it.
here.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We had two amazing women who showed us that we can beat cancer by being our own advocate and reaching out and finding our own support system. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.